And so that's what we'll do now. We will develop this awareness of the mind, starting just here in our sitting position. So get comfortable, find that position that feels good, that allows you to feel alert and aware of just being here. Allow that posture to be upright, but not so upright where you're tense and firm, but just a nice, relaxed, but erect position. What is often known as a noble posture. And so we allow the body to settle into that balanced, comfortable yet wakeful place. And just taking that moment to notice what it feels like to be sitting here. Just letting the body rest. And when it feels good and if it feels comfortable, you can allow the eyelids to very gently close so that they're barely touching each other. And this part is something that we shouldn't overlook, because often when we start to focus on different thoughts, the muscles around the eyes tend to tense up a bit. So during the meditation, we can just check to see if there's any tension and just allow the muscles around the eyes to be soft. And same with the muscles in the cheeks and the jaw. Allowing our awareness to flow through the body, inviting in a sense of ease. And if we notice any sign of tension or strain, we can allow the body to release it. Softening whatever area needs softening. Just allowing the body to relax, to rest in this soft and easy way, with our full awareness at the same time of this body resting. Allow every part of the body to ease up, to loosen, and to release. We allow the body to rest. Feeling that ability to slow down. And there's no rush or hurry whatsoever. We just let it be and release. And we invite in a sense of ease and release in the mind as well. Inviting the mind to let go of anything that doesn't serve us, allowing us to be in this present moment at this time without the past, without the future, as if we're starting fresh right here. Invite in that sense of lightness, that sense of ease, with the same sense of release, like we're allowing the balloon to just float, no longer tethered to the world. So we release ourselves from all of our worries and cares, all of our obligations, our things to do. We can set that aside for now as much as possible. We can always get back to it later if we choose to. But for now, we can just rest. No need to think or plan, analyze. If it's helpful, you could even imagine as if you're a robot that has no ability to think on its own. It's just watching whatever comes its way. As if we have no analytical brain, and its function is to only observe. And in this moment, we observe this peacefulness of the body and the mind starting to settle down. And within this sense of spaciousness and openness that arises from our releasing, allow our attention to softly rest inward, floating down, resting at the end of our deep breath in the middle of the abdomen, at the center of the body. Like a soft, light bubble that gently floats down, and comes to a soft rest in the space in your belly. Or wherever within the body that feels most noticeable and most comfortable for you to rest. And we allow our awareness to be soft and neutral, just observing our current moment experience, but in an easy, soft way. Whatever arises, we allow arise without pushing away, without holding on. And whatever goes, we let it go. All while maintaining our awareness still and focused at the center of the body, or whatever point feels comfortable for you. Anytime you notice that the mind has wandered off, that's totally okay. And in that moment, we invite our mind to let go of what took us away. And we gently guide our awareness back with tenderness and care, coming back to rest within. Easy and gentle. Bringing that full awareness to our experience now, in this present moment. But in a light and easeful way. And if it's helpful to maintain your awareness there within you, you could allow a bright object to softly appear within you at your center or wherever it appears naturally. And just softly observe that bright object. Or you can use sound by repeating some familiar words or a mantra and letting the sound float from within, from the center or other point of awareness. It could be any word that feels easeful and peaceful. Or perhaps these Pali words, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. Choose whatever method allows you to feel most at ease, allowing you to maintain your awareness light and soft within you as we continue to practice in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Continue to maintain that soft, still awareness, resting at the center or other point of awareness. Allow yourself to connect with the feeling of ease, of peacefulness, of gentleness. Along with a sense of goodwill and kindness. Allow those feelings to expand from within you and radiate outward, allowing those feelings of ease, kindness, and care to be shared first with yourself. This self that has allowed you to be here now and made it through all that's happened in our lives. And then allow these same feelings to expand outward and reach everyone in our area, including everyone on this call, in this room, expanding to reach everyone in our building, in our neighborhood. Sending along these same good wishes of ease and care. And then allowing these feelings to expand ever outward in all directions until it reaches all beings around the world with no exceptions. May all beings be happy, peaceful, healthy and strong, safe, free from all danger, and have ease and well-being in their lives. And whenever you're ready, you may slowly come out of the meditation, continuing to connect with that stillness and that care within. And thank everyone for your practice together. And I thought, for today, we could talk about something perhaps uplifting, because we find ourselves in very challenging times nowadays with COVID, with a lot of sickness, death, strain on our social family relationships, financial hardships, racial injustice, especially now in the eve of the elections in the US, a lot of political mudslinging and, potential conflict with people with different political opinions. The feeling that maybe our political systems are being, undermined or being threatened. The war and suffering in this country and around the world right now. And these are more of the collective things that we're feeling, and doesn't even mention all of the individual hardships and traumas that we might be feeling within us, that push and pull, that resistance, that unease. So for today, my intention for today's talk is to inspire us with the example of the lotus, because its many characteristics that are quite special can be good reminders for how we can rise above and live more nobly in dark times and difficulties. So, the lotus. We see that the lotus rises up from above. And the sacred lotus, as it's known, is one of the world's most oldest flowering plants, and it's considered sacred in many cultures around the world. Some places that really revere the lotus are in ancient Egypt, in India, China, and other countries in Asia. For example, in Hinduism, it's believed that within each human lies the spirit of the sacred lotus. So it represents eternity, divinity, and purity, and represents in Hindu tradition life, fertility, and renewal. In Buddhist culture, the lotus flower represents purity of body, mind, and spirit. And according to the stories of the Buddha, everywhere the baby Buddha stepped, a lotus flower bloomed. And different color lotuses often have different meanings. So the white lotus represents mental purity and spiritual perfection, like enlightenment. The red lotus, love and compassion. And the blue lotus, wisdom and intelligence. So the lotus itself is a very beautiful flower. But we might, when we actually look at how it grows, we see that it grows in the muck, in muddy water. So the lotus doesn't grow on the upland plain. The lotus grows in the mud, and in the mud and mire of a damp, low-lying place. Because we see that if you look beneath the water, the lotus uses like rhizomes to attach itself to the ground. And this rhizome is buried in the mud and the sandy floor below it. And actually all parts of the lotus are edible. The rhizome, the leaves, the flowers itself, the seeds. And so it grows in this muck, in this muddy, muddy water. And so we can ask ourselves, well, how might that be similar to us? And what is this muck that we're talking about? So for us, we live with attachments and desires. We're often affected by mental states that cloud the mind. So there's greed and hatred and delusion in various forms and degrees. And we live in this cycle of samsara, which is really the cycle of existence, of birth, of growing older, and then of death. And so the lotus often symbolizes the purity of an enlightened mind arising in the midst of suffering, of samsara, of this cycle. And it also represents non-attachment, since it's rooted in mud, which we can consider to be attachments and desires. But its flowers blossom on long stalks that are dirtied by the mud below. So we can see the lotus as representative of the human condition, where we're all born from and attached to this world, this muddy, murky world. But we all have the ability to rise above and transform that mud and muck around us into beauty, purity, and wisdom. And the Buddha compares human beings to lotuses. And in one of the teachings that the Buddha offers, and that Venerable Burin shared in one of the morning classes, that was very inspiring. He shared the 4 types of learners and compared it to the 4 stages of the lotus based on the Buddha's teaching. And here, the Buddha compares the 4 stages of the lotus flower to the stages that we ourselves might find on the spiritual path. So basically 4 types of people and their distance from enlightenment. There's first the lotus above the water. So this is where the flower and the blossoms, rise above and receive that light right away. In this case, receive the good teachings of how to develop ourselves in a positive and virtuous way. Then we have the lotus at the level of the flower, or of the water. So this might, be compared to a person who, is interested in these teachings of love and nonviolence, but maybe not ready to blossom right away. Maybe needs a little bit of encouraging, but is pretty ready. Then there's a lotus just beneath the surface of the water, which might represent some people who, have a little bit of interest, but not too much, more involved with other things in the world. And so with these people, these individuals, we might need to keep encouraging them, talking to them about living in a more peaceful way. And then there's a lotus that lies deep down below the water, right? It's so deep down, it's so in the mud itself, won't rise up above the water and see the light. And as Venerable Burin mentioned, it actually might become food for the turtles under the water. So I thought this teaching was very inspiring because it helps ask the question, which kind of lotus do we wish to be? And we might find ourselves in different mind states throughout the day, right? We might think, that sometimes we get so lost in the news or in the negativity that we might feel so deep down within. But this is this reminder that, oh, right, like I can choose to rise above, right, as the conditions allow. And also it's a helpful reminder to help me discern the kind of people I want to spend my time and energy on, right? And how much energy would be needed with each person. So we might be interacting with a stranger who, has very different views or does something that really is infuriating. do I want to spend that much time trying to convince this person otherwise, where they might be a lotus deep down in the mud and might not, no matter what I say or do, won't ever understand? Or, maybe I find myself with someone who, maybe a friend or a family member who is interested, has similar values in general, but just needs a little bit more nurturing. And so we can spend our time appropriately interacting with various people we see and where we think they might stand in terms of their own stage in personal development. And also, right, if we see ourselves as needing that extra nourishment, perhaps we can surround ourselves by people who are lotuses already above the water. We can consider each of us here, in this MMI setting as our fellow Sangha, our peace-loving community members. And in our own lives, that could also be spending more time with people who inspire us. So our mentors, our teachers. So if we find ourselves in need of more nourishment, we can spend more time with those people who are living their lives above the water. And then when we feel more nourished ourselves and are in a position of being above the water, we can then maybe spend and devote energy to those not yet above the water. So another interesting characteristic of the lotus is what's called the lotus effect. And scientists have used this lotus effect to refer to the self-cleaning properties of the lotus. And here they're referring to the very unique structure of the lotus leaf itself. So on a very nanoscopic level, we can see that there's a bumpiness to the surface of the lotus leaf. And this structure causes water droplets to bead up and pick up dirt particles as it moves along. So instead of being a little bit more like less rounded, where the water droplets just kind of flow through without picking anything up, this rounded beaded structure allows it to actually pull dirt particles along with it. And this causes the lotus leaf to be water repellent and to clean itself. So even though it lives in this muddy water, its very structure and way of being lets all that dirty water that attaches to it to roll off and not get absorbed. And the Buddha makes several mentions of the lotus in his teachings, referring to this pure, unsullied nature. And he says in one of the sutras, just like a red, blue, or white lotus, born in the water, grown in the water, rising up above the water, stands unsmeared by the water. In the same way, I, born in the world, grown in the world, having overcome the world, live unsmeared by the world. Remember me, Brahman, as awakened. And this was in response to a question that the Brahmin asked the Buddha as he saw him sitting peacefully in meditation. He was asking the Buddha, like, who are you? Right? Are you a spiritual deity? Are you some sort of god, or well, who are you? And so this is him talking about not like living above and going beyond the typical world, being unsmeared. So we can think of this quality of the lotus And, ask ourselves, can we shake off all the dirt and things that come our way that might not serve us? Perhaps let that negativity beat up and roll off without absorbing them. And in this way, bit by bit, live more undisturbed by the ups and downs of whatever comes up in life, and to maintain more equanimity no matter what does happen. Another interesting quality of the lotus is its ability to regulate its own temperature. It's one of 3 plants in the world that can regulate its own temperature to within a narrow range, just as humans and other warm-blooded mammals do. So what happens with the lotus is that when it gets too cold, it within itself starts to warm itself up. And then when the sun comes and it gets a little too warm, it has the ability to cool itself down. And a fun fact is that researchers found that it generally maintained a temperature of 86 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit within itself, even when the air temperature around it dropped to 50 degrees. And you can see in this photo, they did like I think a heat photos to really detect the heat within the lotus. And you can see this, this ability to generate heat even when the outside is quite cold. And this allows us to think of how we could be like the lotus in terms of regulating what we need. So with this, we can become aware of what we need in our lives, right? And allow for that kind of adjustment to happen based on what we notice we're feeling or we need at that moment. So this requires mindful awareness to be attentive to what we need, and just allow us to find that noble balance so that we can be wise and compassionate in our thoughts, speech, and actions. So are we starting to feel a little nervous and tossed about by what's going on outside? Are we getting a little worked up and feeling a little too activated and warm? So then we can allow ourselves to cool down and rest with quiet and stillness. But are we finding ourselves a little bit less connected or detached, maybe a little numb or not, a little colder? Then we can see if we can allow ourselves to warm up a bit. So whatever allows us to internally regulate based on what we need. The lotus also, interestingly enough, blooms and closes, from daylight to nighttime. So it opens up when it receives the sunlight in the morning, and then at night it closes up and withdraws. And for this reason, in ancient Egypt, the lotus was the symbol of the sun, of rebirth and creation, because of this opening and closing during the day. And this allows us to think of ourselves in terms of turning towards and then strategic withdrawing. So a Buddhist teacher named Larry Yang had this beautiful way of explaining it, of turning toward and strategically withdrawing. So turning towards is that ability to, open up to all experiences in life, in particular the unpleasant ones. Since we often tend to try to, close ourselves up and try to not feel, negative, unpleasant feelings. So the invitation is to see if we can open up and just examine what it is that we're feeling within, especially if we're feeling fear or anxiety or these things that we often don't want to feel, but just allowing ourselves to be open to that. But if that process of turning toward feels so overwhelming, right? Like it's too much and we can't handle it, we don't have those internal resources, then perhaps we can strategically withdraw. And this means, not escaping or pushing away, but really it comes with this compassionate intention to be aware of our own limitations and abilities in this current moment. So when we withdraw, this could help us to restabilize. And once we have the strength and the capacity to more fully turn towards everything in life, then we can re-engage with more resources. So just like the lotus, which doesn't keep itself open 24 hours a day, but closes itself up at night for self-protection and temperature regulation, we can skillfully act in this way to turn towards life and whatever comes up, and also strategically withdraw when we need to. And one practical tip that the psychologist William James offered is to do one small thing every day that we wouldn't rather do. So this allows us to every day, bit by bit, build up that muscle of resisting, of not doing what we like, but we do it anyways. And so when bigger things happen in our lives that are unpleasant, we'll have that muscle already more well developed to handle those challenges. Another interesting quality of the lotus is the ability to stay dormant, for its seeds to stay dormant for hundreds, even 1,000 years. So there's a study, a few studies that were done with old seeds that were found in an ancient lake in northern China. And so that lake, was drained off by an earthquake, long ago. And so they started to collect old lotus seeds. And in some of the experiments, they found that they were able to germinate seeds that were 500, 600 years old. Even the oldest one that was carbon dated was found to be 1,288 years old. So we can use the lotus as a symbol of resilience, this idea that, we in the darkest times still have hope. And it's also a reminder for us that, it's okay to take an extended rest. In fact, perhaps we might need to go on retreat every once in a while. It's also a good reminder that, whatever seeds we plant during our day, during our lives, remain dormant within us until we decide to water them. And this goes for positive seeds and negative seeds, or seeds that, for example, if we plant seeds of patience, of kindness, and we decide to water those seeds, that's what will grow. Same with seeds of, let's say, impatience and anger. You know, they will grow if we decide to water it. So it's an invitation to think about which seeds will we nurture now in this moment. So to start to wrap up, there's two ways to think about how we can rise above like the lotus. The first is to do our best, whatever that is in this moment, to resist the muck, this indecency that we see all around us. So that might come in the form of news, of complaining, either others or ourselves doing it, maybe resentments that we harbor, discord, conflict, you know, harmful ways of acting and living. And then, so first part is resisting that or not getting involved. And then the second is moving toward the light. And this is following our noble path, staying the course in doing and what's good. So practicing positive values for humanity, which are, you know, loving kindness, equanimity, patience, love, and care. And if we think about it in terms of the Buddha's teachings, it's on the one hand doing good, on the other hand avoiding bad, and if we had a third hand, of purifying the mind. And we can purify the mind through meditation. We do good through acts of generosity and of care. And we avoid bad by living ethically and doing things that don't cause harm to others. So perhaps we can be like a lotus among flames. And in the Vimalakirti Sutra, there's this beautiful, beautiful teaching that talks about this person named Vimalakirti, who is considered to be a householder. So not a monastic practitioner, not a monk or someone, but just a regular Joe like us, where, you know, living in the world with a family, with having to work and all that, but really exemplifying the life of a lotus. So here it says, he shows himself subject to the 5 desires, referring to the 5 senses. Yet he's also seen to practice meditation. To live as a lotus among flames, this may be deemed a rare thing. To exist amid desire, yet practice meditation. This is too rare. So I hope that with this talk, we could think of ourselves as lotuses rising above the water, which I'm going to assume we all are just by the very fact that we're here practicing meditation. So that's a great sign. And remember to take care of ourselves, to look within to see what we truly need, to go on retreat as we need, allow for that internal regulation and recalibration, letting in what serves us, you know, letting roll off what doesn't, strategically withdrawing when we need, and then opening up and turning towards the light to nourish others and ourselves when we can. So with this, we can be like the lotus and can rise up again and again because we have this essence of purity and wisdom deep within us that's good and untouched by the external world. We just need to connect with that purity and luminosity within us, just like the lotus.